All right, good afternoon, everyone, all the journalists who are watching online. We're very pleased today to have with us the Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children, Ms. Siobhán Mullally. The Special Rapporteur presented her report to the General Assembly yesterday, and you would have received a media advisory, a press release with links in your inbox. Please email me if you have not received it. The Special Rapporteur will make opening remarks, and then if there are any questions, you're welcome to email me. You're welcome to ask them in the chat as well. Special Rapporteur? From there.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I presented my report to the Third Committee General Assembly yesterday. It's focusing in particular on the challenges that result in gaps in accountability with regard to trafficking in conflict settings, and makes recommendations to see how to strengthen accountability for trafficking in persons in conflict settings. Despite increased documentation and acknowledgement of the complex links between trafficking and conflict situations, we know that accountability for conflict-related trafficking for all purposes of exploitation remains limited, and prevention measures are ineffective. It is well established that armed conflicts are recognised among the factors that make people vulnerable to trafficking in persons. However, it is essential that we recognise that vulnerability is a collective failure of states and the international community under our collective responsibility to protect. Accountability gaps are linked to many factors, including challenges in gathering evidence to hold perpetrators accountable, threats to the safety of investigators, inability of the state to facilitate investigations. Generally, there's a failure to ensure the effective and full application of relevant international legal norms under international humanitarian law, international criminal law, international refugee law, and international human rights law. In conflict situations, trafficking takes on different forms. It can include trafficking for purposes of sexual exploitation and sexual slavery, for purposes of forced labour, illegal adoptions, organ removals, or forcible transfers of civilians. And despite the prevalence of a range of forms of trafficking in armed conflict, including by non-state armed groups, we know that trafficking in persons has remained largely invisible in truth recovery and transitional justice accountability processes. The failures to ensure guarantees of non-repetition further undermines processes of peace building, with armed groups and criminal networks frequently engaging in trafficking in persons in post-conflict and in particular in transition settings. The Security Council, in its resolution 2331 in 2016, recognised that trafficking in persons entails the violation or abuse of human rights, and that acts associated with trafficking in persons in the context of armed conflict may constitute war crimes, may also constitute crimes against humanity. However, we continued to see impunity, and the consequence of that is a failure to ensure access to justice for victims and to effective remedies, and in particular continued failures of prevention of trafficking in persons in armed conflict. The International Criminal Court has not as yet prosecuted the crime of trafficking in persons, whether under the crimes against humanity of enslavement or a war crime of sexual slavery, despite increased attention to concerns in relation to crimes against migrants and concerns in relation to trafficking in persons in situations under investigation by the court. I want to emphasise again that what are particularly relevant protections under international humanitarian law include the prohibition on enforced disappearances, including for missing migrants, prevention of recruitment and use of children, prohibition of slavery and the slave trade in all its forms as a fundamental guarantee for civilians, and the prohibition of rape and other forms of sexual violence, including enforced prostitution. International human rights law continues to apply in conflict settings, and there are positive obligations on states to identify, assist and protect victims of trafficking, and to undertake effective investigations, including where the alleged perpetrators are non-state armed groups. It is essential that states ensure effective access to protection, including effective access to asylum and other forms of international protection. And I reiterate here the importance of the upcoming Global Refugee Forum, and I am leading on a pledge calling on states to ensure effective access to asylum and other pathways to international protection for victims of trafficking, and to take effective measures to prevent trafficking in persons among refugees fleeing persecution and conflict settings. The report offers recommendations to states, to the UN, and to other international organisations on ways to strengthen accountability, to combat impunity and ensure effective access to justice for victims of trafficking and persons at risk of trafficking in conflict settings, with a view to enhancing our prevention mechanisms and measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Special Rapporteur. I am looking online. If there is anyone online with a question, please let me know. I don't see any questions online. If there are not any, then thank you very much. Thank you for your time, ma'am.